Beep, 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 beep. This is a test broadcast of the emergency alert system. No action is required at this time. Just continue to watch and enjoy the video. We thank you for your patience at this time. Also, paid channel memberships are now available in the description below. Please continue to enjoy all of the content on this channel. So what is Alt Frequencies, this game that you've almost certainly never heard of? Well, it's a pretty short, kind of narrative-driven game where everything we learn is through the radio, and we make progress by recording different sections of radio clips and then submitting those to different shows while trying to uncover some sort of grand conspiracy theory. It's all centered around a time loop, and if you've watched the other videos, you know how much I love a time loop story. We earn our first achievement, stay tuned, for completing the tutorial, and then we get introduced to Winston, our main partner throughout this story. He tells us that we need to find somebody who has all of the answers and to find the secret radio frequency where the resistance is hiding. No big deal. So now that we have a goal, we can start flipping through the radio stations and getting introduced to some of our characters. The first radio station we flip to is News 1 with Fred Peterson. This is a pretty straightforward news site, but straightforward news is kind of what we need at the start of a game like this. We learn that later this week there's going to be a big vote on whether or not our society should implement a time loop, and this seems not great. Fred also gives us a helpful little piece of dialogue questioning whether hidden radio frequencies exist. This is kind of a weird thing for him to tackle on his straightforward news show, but we'll probably be able to utilize that a little later. The News 1 broadcast continues, but it doesn't seem super relevant to us. But we do learn what happens when we get to the end of a day in this time loop. Everything turns white, and we reset back to the beginning of what was going on at the radio station. So we've got a limited number of moves that we can use to get to the end of the day. Not super important. So my strategy is pretty much to start every new day and flip through all of the radio stations to see what people are talking about. Our next target is Fresh FM with the host Michelle and Old Bob. This is pretty much just your standard morning radio show. They opt to kind of cover the voting stuff, but not really because it's probably going to be too boring for their audience. But we do get a little bit of interesting information. And Michelle seems to have developed some sort of weird illness. This, I thought, was going to play a much bigger role in the story, but actually, it's just kind of a side thing. We finish up with Fresh FM and we head over to another and final classic radio trope, talk radio, with our host NSB. NSB has his classic segment Rant of the Day, which is where we get our first taste of his personality. But a huge benefit of talk radio for our purposes is that NSB has a frequent guest called A Nunn, who is a classic conspiracy theorist, though he prefers truth seeker. And he is a guy that knows everything there is to know about the conspiracy theories going around, specifically involving this time loop vote. So maybe we can utilize his knowledge set to figure out a way to connect with the rest of the resistance. We do have one more quick stop before we go find the resistance though. We click into the pirate radio station, which just has a bunch of random sound effects playing. Kinda weird stuff. At first I thought maybe I could record like some cars honking and I could play that at the point Fred Peterson says there's no traffic and that would do something, but that was kind of just a dead end. Instead, what we need to go do is record the message about hidden radio frequencies, and it's posed as a question, so we can bring that back to NSB. So we pop back over just in time for the NSB segment, and we ask A Nunn about the hidden radio frequencies, and A Nunn confirms that there definitely are hidden radio frequencies that are out there not getting used. But if you can manipulate the airwaves a little bit, you can find your way into some interesting situations. For example, if you record some glass breaking, you might just be able to get into some hidden radio stations, and the pirate radio station might just have what we're looking for. So we pop back over to the pirate radio station and record the sound of a large window breaking when suddenly we get a cutout of our radio and we get a new message from Winston. He congratulates us for finding him, but he has some shocking news for us. The time loop has actually already been implemented by the government, And the vote that's going to happen doesn't actually matter. The government is already in complete control, and we need to try to get this message out to get the people fighting back as soon as we can. This is the end of Chapter 1 as we earn the achievement It's Monday. At the start of Chapter 2, Winston informs us that Amal McMillan is the big enemy we need to be focused on. We need to get the word out that the time loop has been started prematurely, and we need to get the people buzzing. And additionally, Winston gives us some interesting advice. Start from the bottom and work our way up to the big stations, and match the things that the hosts are interested in so that they'll be able to be aired on the live radio. But it's also a new day with some new radio stations for us to check out. The first one is an unknown frequency where we hear somebody called a AB1 calling out what seems to be train routing advice. This probably isn't for us. But something that is interesting to us is the campus radio station that we now have access to. It's being hosted by Kaya and Jenny, and the great thing about campus radio is they are super excited to talk to anybody that will listen. So we can start sending some of our clips in right here. And unlike some of the other bigger radio stations, these hosts are extremely happy to talk about the vote that's going on, and they want to hear everyone's opinions on it. So this is great for us. So they want to hear from us, so let's go ahead and send in Winston's message about Amal McMillan and see what they have to say to that. They take things very seriously and begin to wonder if we're being lied to by the government. And they say they're going to go investigate this as they send us to a music break. I don't know what they're going to investigate, but hey, at least we've got the word out there. So with the college radio team out of office now, I guess we may as well go and see what everyone else is up to. NSB's new thing is he's adopted a dog named Sadie, who is specialized in answering questions about the government. Surely this will not come up in a little bit. Fred Peterson is conducting an interview with a loop scientist, but we also get the information that their messaging system is back online. This is also probably a good omen. We record campus radio asking, are we being lied to by the government? And then we take that message over to NSB's new dog friend to ask the question, are we being lied to by the government? But Sadie is unresponsive, so NSB goes on a little rant about lying. And he gives a pretty clear statement just begging for us to record it, so let's go ahead and give him what he wants. And hey, look at this, everything's really starting to tie together. Over on Fresh FM, they're also talking about lying, so we can submit that NSB audio clip to proceed there as well. That little addition to Fresh FM leads to Michelle talking about one of her friends having headaches related to the time loop being implemented already. Now that is something we can work with. We upload Michelle's information about her friend and the pulsing headaches with the time loop implementation theory to Fred Peterson's show while he's interviewing the head researcher Charlie Thomas. And Charlie Thomas doesn't really like this line of questioning, insisting that the time loop hasn't been implemented yet. But now we've got some pretty solid evidence, albeit secondhand, but a lot of other people are calling into the radio station complaining as well. So this leads Fred Peterson to launching sort of an attack on the government, and now we've got a pretty solid foothold here. Now that we have at least something going on here, we can exit Chapter 2 and earn the achievement Students, Experts, and Tall Tales. Chapter 3 once again starts with a new message from Winston, but this time he sends us a stabilizer sound and simply begs us to record it. He wants us to take that stabilizer sound out to all of the other stations, and if we hear anything that's a little bit garbled, we can use that stabilizer to make the audio a little more clear to maybe help unveil some more secrets. Naturally, we hop over to the unknown frequency and use the stabilizer to clear up the sound of a baby crying. Yeah, we're really using this gift pretty well here. We go to look through the other stations for a little bit, and we find that News 1 now has an interview with Amal McMillan, our lead bad guy, going on. Fred Peterson is a little bit aggressive, but at least now we know that we can come here to access Amal McMillan if we've got any big messages we want to display. Finally, we uncover another hidden frequency that we can use the stabilizer on, and we get access to the police radio. It turns out that the police radio and that baby monitor are on the same frequency. emergency. Funny that. We just happen to tune in while they're talking about our good pal Winston, and they have some not so flattering things to say, saying that he's blaming the government for his issue of not being able to hold down a job. That's kinda harsh. But the main thing that we learn from this conversation is that when the time loop resets, the majority of citizens don't notice and go on about their day. But for some, like us, we're actually immune to that memory reset. So it's going to be up to us that can remember everything to go through time and stop this plan from happening. But as you might expect, the government is a little bit concerned about these citizens that know that we're in a loop, but aren't being affected by that loop being reset, trying to overthrow the government and their control. So they're trying to stop that. So at this point, the game actually kind of gives us a choice. We can send our new recording to whatever station we feel will use the information best. We earn an achievement for sending the scoop to News 1 because Fred Peterson is currently interviewing Amal McMillan, and Fred Peterson has been serving us well in the past up to this point, so we decide that he is the best person to go to. And this is kind of a great choice because Fred Peterson really challenges Amal McMillan on all of this time loop stuff that's coming out. We are really starting to win him over, and he's doing a great job as a journalist. Amal McMillan doesn't want to comment and leaves the stage as we end Chapter 3 and earn the achievement Police and Politics. Chapter 4 Part 1 is kind of a rough listen, as we begin with Winston on the pirate radio station announcing to everyone that the studio is being invaded by the police. While the studio is being raided, Winston continues to broadcast the whole thing live, trying to get the message out to as many people as possible. And he ends up saying, "Jenny, if you can hear this, open the letter." We don't know what that means, but maybe we can get that to Jenny. I actually missed out on recording it the first time, so I flip over to the police radio station to get the recording. And on the police radio station, we get a little bit more information that was cut off from Winston's broadcast as we hear some gunshots and the suspect is down. Oh no. We pop over to News 1 and we find that just like on the other two stations, all eyes are on this raid that's happening, and Tommy B. Gay is live on the scene to basically confirm what we've been seeing on the other stations as well. After we cut back to the studio, Fred Peterson makes a nice statement about how happy he is that the listeners entrusted him with the information that we've uncovered up to this point, and he might have overstepped his bounds a little bit with Amal McMillan, but he is very happy to be getting back to his journalistic roots. So that's good, I guess. When we click over to campus radio, huge things are happening. Kaya has somehow gained access to a list of all of the government officials who are abusing the time loop. I don't really know how she got access to that, but they have it, I guess. And we also notice that the other co-host's name is Jenny. Huh, interesting. We send in the message from Winston telling Jenny to open the letter, and we get the big reveal, I guess, that Jenny's dad is Winston, and she has been given a letter by him to open in the event of his untimely demise. So now Jenny has a list too, provided by Winston. She has the full list of the RMB1 citizens who are not reset by the time loop. So that's kind of dangerous information to put in the hands of a radio host. So now the game gives us another choice. We can use either of the hosts' list, one being the government officials who are abusing the loop, and one being the people that we need to protect from the government that are immune to the loop. It seems like really dangerous to broadcast the names of the people that are immune, because then the government can just go get them, right? But this is Winston's plan, so that's the one that I opt to go for. This seems not wise. We once again pop over to Fred Peterson and deliver Jenny's list to him, and we earn the achievement Jenny's list as well. Fred Peterson gets the list of all of the RMB1s and reads it off live on air, stating that he wants to talk to all of the people unaffected by the loop. Surely this won't blow up in our face, right? At least we earn our 7th achievement, the raid, for completing Chapter 4 Part 1. When we return, we find that we're left with Kaya on campus radio, who gives us the quick rundown to get us back up to date. The people that were on the RMB1 list are being hunted hunted by the police, and Jenny is stuck at the police station being questioned. Things are not going well. But these students are actually doing a pretty good job protesting everything that's going on. Kaya gives us a list of 3 things that would really help out in fighting back against the government and their corruption. And 3 things, we happen to have 3 major radio stations that we can call into. I wonder if these things will correlate at all. Clicking over to News 1, we find that Detective Teray is actually congratulating Fred Peterson on his great journalism work with getting the list of all of the RMB1s that the police are now hunting down. Obviously this wasn't the intention, but I guess it is what it is now. We send Kaya's first message about occupying the polling stations so no one can vote into Fred Peterson's show, and he seems a little bit confused about this, stating that there are clearly terrorist operations underground still moving to fight against the government, and he doesn't really give support, but this seems like at least something was said on the radio, I suppose. The second piece of advice that Kaya requested is things like ropes, locks, and chains, which we send into Fresh FM, but Michelle doesn't seem too pleased by this. Bob kinda tries to talk to her, but she isn't really having it, and her response is so bad that I kind of assumed that I did this wrong and that message was actually supposed to go to NSB. But when we send the message about ropes, locks, and chains over to NSB, we earn the achievement Kinky Dance Parties, with NSB stating that this is probably something they'd be more interested with on Fresh FM. So accidental achievement get there, but at least it was a funny one. So the thing that really resonates with NSB is the request to fill the polling stations with pizzas. Now, the protesters want this for food, but NSB takes this as a prank, sending in loads and loads of pizzas to all of the local polling stations to mess up their work. He's got the spirit though, we'll take it. After we get all 3 of these messages out on the radio, we earn the achievement The Vote for finishing Chapter 4 Part 2. Chapter 5 begins with us on the radio getting a public announcement from Amal McMillan stating that she's very thankful that all of the citizens are happy with the time loop process. So it seems like the vote went through and the loop has been enacted at this point. But due to the nature of certain people being RMB1s that are aware of the loop, the government understands that people might not be comfortable. So now we have the option to stay or extract. And surely this isn't a trap by the government. But the choice at the end of the game is ours. We need to send in a message that says stay or go. And now we're on the lookout for finding messages with those in them so we can make our final choice. Over on News 1, the main topic of discussion seems to be that the protests are still ongoing, though they seem to have been squashed quite a bit. This part is a little confusing to me. I don't know how the protesters would still be protesting if they're in the time loop, but maybe I just don't understand. Over on Fresh FM, things have actually become a solo show. Michelle is the last one left, as Bob is apparently an RMB1 and has been this whole time, which makes sense because he was kind of pushing people to go out and vote much more than Michelle was. The campus news station does not have any hosts left anymore, so it's only broadcasting university announcements and music. And the music just so happens to have the lyrics "Let Me Stay" in it, so that's how we can get that outcome. Over on NSB's talk radio show, he's decided that this new show doesn't allow anyone to send messages in. And I definitely tried to send messages in, and he really does not respond to them. So that's kind of end of an era, I guess. But one positive outcome seems to be that NSB was a former musician, and he's beginning to get back to his roots now post all of this vote talk. And NSB's new single just so happens to include the lyrics "Let Me Go," so there is our other option. This loop seems pretty awful, so my first choice is to choose the "Let Me Go" option, which we submit to the radio station. We get a little message confirming our choice, and then everything fades to white as we leave the loop. We get a little countdown to our extraction, and we earn the achievement Loop Well. We'll meet again as we fade out and go into the credits of the game. Feels kinda like an anticlimactic end, I guess. I was expecting a little bit more there, but I guess maybe we picked the non-intended ending of the game. But luckily for us, now we get to go back and clean up the rest of the achievements, so we can go check that out. We go back in, this time recording Oh Let Me Stay, and we submit that to the voice instead. And then once again, everything fades around us, having chosen to stay. We earn our achievement for staying in the loop, and once again, it just goes straight to the credits. This is really disappointing that there's no, split end here, honestly. Oh well, I guess. Thankfully, this game has a good chapter select system, so it's going to be no big deal for us to go back and clean up our remaining 11 achievements from this point on. So let's just go chapter by chapter. We upload another quote from the Fred Peterson interview about farmers turning into pharmacists to a nun, and we earn our next achievement. And this Fred Peterson interview just keeps giving as we find a cure for Michelle's flu, and we earn the achievement The Show Must Go On for submitting it to her. In chapter 2, we grab a quick recording of Sadie the dog barking, and we submit it to campus radio to earn the achievement Who Let the Dogs Out. Next up, we learn that we definitely made the correct choice sending the RMB1 scoop to News Radio, as we submit it to Fresh FM and earn the achievement for it, but things don't really progress quite as well as they did with Fred. And same deal with NSB. He basically questions why someone would submit real news like that to his show instead of one of the major news networks, which is pretty on brand, honestly. We were actually kind of onto something with that baby monitor thing earlier. We record the station manager Margot and submit that to Fred's show to earn the achievement Baby Monitor Hacker. We just missed that one by a little bit. Another thing I completely missed the first time around is Michelle talking about NSB's music career. I just completely missed the name, I guess, and once we submit it to NSB's show, we earn the achievement Failed Musician. And now we're back to the biggest mistake in the game I think that I made. Instead, I submit Kaya's list to News 1 instead of Jenny's. Really should have gone with my gut the first time around. And in our new loop, we can listen to an explanation by Fred Peterson explaining how the loop works, which he kind of describes in the same way that a plane lands, which allows us to earn the achievement Which Part is Looping. Achievement number 22 is a super cool one. We take the recording of one of the signs the protesters are holding, and we submit that to an unknown frequency to reveal the new face of the resistance, who just so happens to be Jenny. This is awesome. And our final achievement of alt frequencies is once again abusing Mr. NSB. We go and take a recording of his new song and then loop back to the beginning of the day where we submit it to his own show, where we earn the achievement Temporal Paradox, and we can now officially say we have done everything in alt frequencies. So how did we do? Alt frequencies took me about 2.6 hours to complete, which is a little bit on the long side. If you followed a guide, you could definitely finish this game much quicker, possibly even within an hour, but obviously that's not the fun way to play it for my first time through for this video. This game it was fun for what it was, but I have a hard time recommending it because it's so narrow in the narrative that it's telling. The actual narrative is really interesting, but the fact that the choices don't really matter in the end is kind of super disappointing to me. But hey, let me know what you thought of this game. It was kind of interesting, I thought. I had never heard of it before I looked up short games on my Steam library, so at least we got to play something a little bit different from what we normally do, I guess. And if you're wondering why I picked something so short for no other reason, I'm kind of in the process of moving, I guess immediately post-move right now, but I just haven't had a whole lot of time to get anything recorded, so hopefully you enjoy this video regardless. And hopefully the audio isn't too much worse. Things are a little bit rough right now, and I'm trying to figure out ways to fix it, but hopefully it's not too bad and you can at least enjoy watching the videos still. But as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to leave any comments that you have down below, as well as any other game suggestions that you want to see me check out. Hope you enjoyed this video, and hope to see you in the next one. See you!